In 1974, the first tabletop role-playing game was created. Since then, people from all around have gathered to play. Join me as we talk with RPG enthusiasts while they share their best, worst, and favorite moments. This is You Had to Be There.
Hey everyone, welcome to You Had to Be There, a D&D storytelling podcast. Just so you know, if you want to be on the show, just as I always like to mention, you just drop a email to me at youhadtobethere, dndpodcast@gmail.com, so you can come on and tell some fun stories. If it's your first time joining us, pretty much we sit down with RPG players, we talk about some crazy shit that goes down, because that's what happens all around the world, right now, tomorrow, yesterday. Crazy stories are happening. So I'm just going to get right to it. My guest today is, he actually sent me an email. Very easy to do. Colin Turzai. I said that right?
Yep, you're good.
I did it. Okay. All right, Colin. So you play, you hit me up, and I do know I have a little bit of insight on you, but I'm trying to actually, instead of the standard, out of all, because you've played a bunch of different systems, what is your favorite system that you currently play right now?
My favorite system that I currently play...
Or have ever played, either one of those.
Currently play... It's very hard to say I like Vampire 5th Edition more than I like D&D 5th Edition, but
okay.
I've definitely had more fun recently with it. Favorite system ever is actually one I've barely gotten to ever play.
Okay, show me the book.
Right here.
What do we got?
It's the Doctor Who RPG.
Oh my gosh. I've heard great things.
Now, this is a newer version. As you can see, Capaldi's on it.
Yeah,
so that kind of dates it a little bit. It's similar in design to the recent Fantasy Flight Star Wars game, which I have controversial opinions on, but okay. It's good. It's good.
I haven't played the Doctor Who game yet, but a previous guest of mine, Jacob Cortis, who actually ran our Call of Cthulhu one shot that we did a couple weeks ago, he runs a lot of Doctor Who. He's a professional DM, and he runs a lot of Doctor Who games. And he had a really great story about those. So it's definitely something I would like to try at some point.
Yeah, it's definitely something that I don't think I ever want to run long term, but it's something that lends itself to a lot of good episodic gameplay.
I mean, if you're a Doctor Who fan like I am, you know Doctor Who is basically just mostly a series of one-shots that do end up kind of having a similar story towards the end. But when you're watching Doctor Who, it's mostly just, they're basically one-shots. That's kind of how the whole seasons are set up as.
Yeah, like the one campaign I ran, it was basically a 3.5-year series of vignettes that ended with what at the time we thought was the death of all the Time Lords, but obviously the exact nature of Gallifrey has been retconned twice now in recent memory.
I mean, I'm sure when they started coming up with these stories and stuff, their plan was like, we'll probably do a few seasons and then the Time Lords will be over and that'll be end. And then next thing, 40 years later, like just a crazy amount of years later. And they're like, oh no, this is supposed to be like when the 13th Doctor was supposed to be like the last one, or the 12th Doctor. And they're just like a rip in time. And they're just like, we're just going to give you another couple more, I guess. Like, they got to keep the story going.
Yeah, so that's probably my favorite system that I rarely get to play. It's either a toss-up between that or Shadowrun 5th Edition, which I don't have them on hand. I want to say someone's borrowing them to run a game I'm not playing in. Because I rarely get to play myself. I am a very in-demand storyteller, so I don't get to play as a player much.
Those lifelong DMs, man, that's what happens when you're good at your job. That's it.
it's a cross that I'm told I'm good at bearing. So
it's a gift and a curse is when it comes down to, which is why I try not to be too good at DMing. I just do it occasionally, and I do it subpar, so I don't ask to do it a lot. All right, cool. So when did you start playing? Like, what was your first tabletop RPG game?
So the first tabletop RPG game I ever played, I actually have right here.
Nice.
It was literally the one book we had. AD&D, like original Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. My cousin Michael and I had a mutual paternal grandfather that when he died, basically everyone descended upon his house just to get stuff. Because he didn't really have like a will in the literal sense of the word.
Gotcha.
And we found this in a closet.
Oh my god. And we
found like a giant manila folder, like yay thick, full of just documentation.
That's awesome though. That's like so your grandfather played D&D, or was it just something he had in his house?
I assume he played. I never talked to him about it because I didn't discover it in the house until he died. So I assume it was either he played it or he knew people who did. Maybe he was just the host. I don't know. Because he never talked about it.
That's like so beautiful almost though. Like you didn't know like he played, and then you found this book and it's kind of cool. That's
it's funny that. Yeah, and then I originally was just the player because Michael was a couple years older, and he was like, I think I can figure out the math behind this.
Yeah.
Because I am notoriously bad at math.
Right.
So this was the worst edition to start with.
Yeah, I've heard.
This has Thaco in it.
Yes. Yeah, I have not.
And I'm not even going to begin to talk about that.
No, well, one of my earlier guests also started off, I think, with AD&D was Jay. He talked about it, and I know enough about it to know that I don't want to know any more about it. I'm in the realm with you where like I've said it before, but like if from what I've heard about that game specifically, if I like when I first played, I was like, I want to try this game, and that was the game, I wouldn't have kept playing. I'd be like, this is way too much math and complication. Like, so I may be a baby, I may be coddled, but the 5th edition world is a world that works for me because I'm a simple man and I don't have time to be calculating my Thaco.
I think the good thing about modern RPG game design, and this is really something we see from 4th edition to now, though obviously no one likes 4th edition because reasons. What 4th edition started to do, and what every game after it has done, and says, okay, so we know that people don't like math, but they like what they get because the math works.
Right. So
we're going to hide all the math behind averages and things that just happen. Because the most vivid memory I have of using this book is somewhere in here. There's a table that I had to use 5 minutes at a time to calculate how a dragon was going to be able to hit my paladin. Because I was literally always fighting dragons, because I was like the son of an evil emperor who wanted to kill all magic. So naturally, I have to go hunting dragons.
Right. See, I wouldn't have, that would have been it for me. I would have been spent. All right, so you started.
So, and this is sidebar. If math is a problem for you, don't use a grenade in Shadowrun, because then you have to use square roots.
I mean, if it's once in a while and I have to break out a calculator, fine. But like when it's described to me that like every few minutes, like you were saying, like do I hit or not? Like I like that simple, just
I agree.
Yeah. Cool. And so how long have you been playing then? When was this? When you started this first?
So that would have had to have been 2004.
All right.
So I would have been. I have to pull out a calculator.
You don't have to worry about that. You were young. It's.
I'd have been like 6, 7, somewhere in that ballpark. 6 or 7.
That's amazing. Wow.
Ish.
Okay, so you're a little bit younger than that's amazing. Like, so you've really been, and have you like during this period of time? Because now, have you been consistent? Because now what does that mean? That means you're pushing like 10 years.
Like I have been consistently running games for 15 years.
Wow.
So I can look my students in the eye and say, I have literally been playing a game longer than you've been alive.
It's crazy.
And it frightens them to their core.
I mean, whatever. Did they know that are you like one of those, the cool teacher that runs a D&D
so I'm definitely not the cool teacher, but they do, they know what I do because my desktop background is Magic the Gathering art.
Okay. Well, let's get one thing clear. When I was in high school, the cool teacher was my science teacher that dressed up like Obi-Wan Kenobi on Halloween. So to me, that's the cool teacher. So that's what I mean. So
yeah, I'm the cool teacher for the kids that like anime because I can actually talk to them about it, and it isn't like.
Yeah. No, that's very cool. Nice. All right. So when was the last time you got to be a player in a game? Do you get to do it every once in a while, or?
Last year I played in a game where a friend of mine was trying to start a game.
Okay.
And he's tried to start this game 3 different times, and I played the same character every time because I notoriously only play evil aligned characters.
Oh, really?
Though I play lawful evil, so you can tolerate me.
Oh, okay. It's not too, lawful evil.
And I was an evil son of a version of the Roman Empire, and I was working for Mab, Queen of Winter, and I was trying to help her like conquer a province or something.
I feel like lawful evil is almost sometimes scarier than like chaotic evil because like I feel like chaotic can be a little swayed because they're chaotic, but lawful you're like, no, it's my way or the highway, or my way or you die usually.
So for me, the fun thing about lawful evil is that lawful evil is evil that you can overlook because it's evil that negotiates.
Okay.
It's evil. It's evil that you're going to forget about because they're useful to you.
Okay, I got you. Interesting. Anyway, I haven't gone the evil route yet. I brought it up one time with my group, and they were like, you know what? Sometimes you don't want to know what you're capable of if you were to play an evil character, and I was like, all right, that's fair. So what do you I know you run, what are you running now? So you said how many games do you run a week? Because you said you have a few of them. One of them is virtual, right?
Yeah, so weekly I run between 1 and 2 games, depends on what part of the month I'm in. I collectively run 9 games in a given rotation.
Now is that a month?
So most of them meet once a month.
Okay.
Like my vampire game meets once a month. Well, let me actually look at my list here because it might actually it might not be 9 right now, but it's going to be 9 again soon.
Soon.
So it's 4 D&Ds, Vampire, Call of Cthulhu. So it's 7 right now.
Okay, 7 right now.
Because I've got 2. Yeah, what you got?
Oh no, I was gonna say, have you thought about like professionally DMing or semi-professionally DMing?
So the thing that stops me from wanting to do it professionally is it's really 2 things. One, I'm kind of a boomer when it comes to technology, and I feel like especially with how the market is right now, if someone's paying for D&D, they're not paying for my deep theater of the mind in a Discord call. They are they are paying for a person who can make all the bells and whistles on Roll20 work or Fantasy Grounds.
Yeah, that makes sense. I'm kind of with you. Like we tried using Foundry and it was really cool, but I felt so stupid. I was like, I don't know. Just describe it to me instead.
I really like Fantasy Grounds. as a platform, because I find it more intuitive than Roll20. The problem is it's so much more expensive because they nickel and dime you on everything.
Right.
And as a marketplace, D&D is for people that don't have the money for an expensive hobby most of the time.
Yeah.
So just Roll20 is where we're at. And then the other part of it is I run D&D to tell stories. And like, as an artist, I don't make my art to make money. Like I published a novel 5 years ago that's sold less than 1,000 copies. Like I don't care if my art is profitable.
Well, if it makes you feel any better.
I can't. So like I can't do it for a living because I'm not going to be passionate enough about the business side of things.
Right.
To make it right.
Real quick, I'm going to ask you, can you move your camera just a little bit because you're getting cut off a little bit on my stream? Just like make it show your face a little more. There we go. That's a little better there. What I was going to say is have no fear because I'm pretty sure professional DMs don't make a lot of money. But right. I'm sure you do it. As someone who's also a stand-up comic, I don't do my art for money because it's almost impossible. But I get what you're saying. It makes sense. Like you don't want to. It's like the person that can sing really well, but they're like, I'm not going to go pursue a singing career. I just like to do it for me. And I totally get that.
Yeah. Like if I at some point make it big as a streamer for whatever reason, maybe. But...
Yeah. I totally understand. So you have, oh my gosh. So you have 7 games a week.
Well, a month.
A month. Sorry, 7 games a month. Obviously, yeah. 7 games a week would be crazy.
A week would be.
A week would be. I meant impossible. A month.
Yeah. That would be impossible by player base.
So all of those except for one though are in person.
Yes, only a single game is virtual.
That's crazy. Which one is that one?
So it's a game called Lost in Dreams, and it's a game that I started to run because a friend of mine, their little brother, who's in middle school, really wanted to get into D&D. And I'm the only DM they know. And I was like, I mean, I'll do it, but y'all know my stories get dark.
Right, okay.
So I was like, so I'm going to have an artistic compromise here, and I'm going to run, like, I call it Gothic Disney.
Okay.
Because it's like, it's set in an alternate history where World War II never happened, World War I ends, or like colonialism is still a thing. So we still have mostly the same culture, but like it's very stagnant. Like the American Revolution wasn't a victory. We're still British colonials. And so there's all these disparate empires, but the real fight is culture. Because there's the Disney Corporation that literally made sentient cartoons, a la Who Framed Roger Rabbit. And then there's the Mythkin, which are like, you know, dragons, dwarves, elves. They're all real. There's hiding from human society. Because if humans actually get real magic, all bets are off.
It's weirdly probably factual. Yeah, that would be terrifying. I know in like a lot of games humans can, but in a real world, yeah, probably a bad idea.
Yeah, well, it's especially terrifying for them because they recently found a human who got real magic, and he made hags. Like hags didn't exist before. He invented them by accident.
Oh no! How did he invent them by accident? I'm curious. Like, what was the
he was in Walt Disney's will.
Okay.
Because Walt tried to make animation to subtly take control of the entire world through propaganda. Nudge, nudge, what the Disney Corporation's actually trying to doing. And in his will, he had this giant list of people who were told, you can go research whatever you want. Here's money to do it. And his research was trying to untap the psychic power of humans to the point of awakening magic.
Oh my
and
gosh.
He discovers this like a Cthulhu-esque thing in the Arctic, brings it back and starts using it for like bioengineering. He becomes like a biological artificer.
Oh my gosh.
and he ends up making hags literally by accident.
Oh no. That's hilarious though. I love that like dark Disney, right? The happiest place on earth, I think. So you said you're always geared towards like this more darker. I guess that makes sense because you run like the vampire game, but like and Call of Cthulhu. But what, like, as a DM, do you do you homebrew pretty much everything?
So I never run rules as written for a couple reasons. While I respect the argument of people who want to play rules as written, the reason I don't care for it is when the rules outweigh story suffers. And the game is the story. If the story is higher than the rules, sure, rules consistency suffers.
Right.
But at the end of the day, as long as the story is good, the players aren't going to care.
Yes. Yeah, no, that makes sense. I think flexing the rules a bit for story purposes is not a huge thing. I mean, as long as it doesn't break the game, but that's like,
yeah. And breaking the game is something we can talk about in a minute. But if my players were to tell you the tone of my game, it's very gothic fantasy. Like it's dark enough to not be 40K, but it's not bright enough to be Middle Earth.
Gotcha.
Somewhere right in the middle. Like
right.
The 7-year campaign we finished right as COVID started, ironically enough, was called the Great Grudge War. And it was 15 years in game.
Oh no.
So it was 7 years in real life, 15 years in game.
Oh my gosh.
Where the goal was to stop this evil halfling empire from subjugating the entire known multiverse into a client state system of slavery.
Jeez.
Though in defense of the evil halfling emperor, his reason for doing it was if the universe isn't strong enough to fight against the existential threats, we're all going to die anyway, so who cares if we're free?
That's true. Oh my gosh. The irony behind that name and the situation is quite hilarious. So, all right, so that's your general theme. So, all right, so you're talking about breaking the game. What situation have you broken or had a player break the game?
So, for me, I am notorious for making what I like to call fun items, what my players like to call broken items. And I can try to show you one.
You don't have to.
That'll give you context.
You can send it to me later. I probably won't be able to see it from the way the stream's set up. Just tell me what's the item. You can send it to me later.
Yeah, so I'll pull it up real quick. So the one that comes to mind, just for sheer insanity of it, is something called the Sundering Blade.
Sundering Blade.
And I'm going to give you a brief rundown on its lore, and then I'm just going to read its base damage.
Okay.
And that'll be enough. So this is literally a blade that was built to mimic a near cataclysmic event.
It's explosions.
So it's a +4 draconically infused greatsword, wondrous artifact.
Oh my gosh.
Here's its damage. 2d6 plus 8d4 plus 8 poison damage plus 8d4 plus 8 lightning damage plus 8d4 plus 8 fire damage plus 8d4 plus 8 cold damage plus 8d4 plus 8 acid damage plus 6d10 psychic damage plus 8d8 bludgeoning damage.
What's the what's the catch? That would be my brain. What's the catch?
So the catch is that you literally cannot attune to this until your character is both level 20 and able to cast 6th level spells.
Okay. So, all right. So this is a way, way late in the game, or you give it to them in the beginning as a joke and they can't even use it for a while?
Well, so here's my core philosophy, right? D&D, especially 5th edition, at its core, once we get to like level 15 or higher, balance doesn't matter. Balance doesn't exist.
Right.
So the game's going to break itself. So I might as well have fun while it's breaking itself.
I just would love to someone with that sword just go up and splatter a goblin into all ends of the universe. Just
well, the average damage is 287.
Yeah, exactly. Just for just the comical aspect of it. But that's it's so many dice. You don't. It is. I don't. I'm like very like. I like you said, like I'm kind of a boomer when it comes to D&D because like I played a few virtual, and usually we're just on the honor system. But a buddy of mine was like, no, you have to like roll 20, and I was like, I'm not doing that. And I was like, he was like, but I need to see your rolls, and I was like, okay. So I like turned my camera down so he could see my dice. I was like, I'm not rolling on that crap. That sword, I would definitely roll with an app on that sword. I would not roll that many dice and trying to add all that.
It's funny. After they got to level 22. A bunch of my core players were like, we're going to roll the first time of the night with this thing. We're just taking the average the rest of the way.
Yeah.
It's literally all of our dice. And I was like, I'm not going to stop you from making life easier for you.
Yeah, I feel like rolling that many dice is like when someone first gets to your place and they're like a dice goblin, they have their sack and they just go, that's all the damage that sword does.
Well, what's funny is that isn't even the largest amount of damage I've personally had to roll as the dungeon master.
Oh my god. So okay, so then I guess that's the counter argument is you give them broken items, but that also means you can throw some stupid stuff at them.
Yes.
And that makes it fun for you. So you're like, all right, well, they're going to kill half of my big bad with one swipe of this sword. I might make them real big bad.
Well, keep in mind the like big bad evil guy at the end of that campaign was the Emperor of all creation and 5 of an empire's gods all at the same time.
Who got to use this sword? This
sword was used by Roland the 26th. He's like this schizophrenic wizard that is technically one of the oldest elves in all of creation.
Okay.
Because he was made by one of the primordial elders of the universe to try to not die, but he didn't work. So he's just this guy. He's kind of like Doctor Who.
Gotcha.
Like he's like the Doctor if he didn't give a shit.
Very funny.
And he's tied to a book, and when he dies, the next magic user that picks it up becomes the new Roland.
Oh, okay, so that's where all the numbers come into place. Very cool. Is this 5th edition?
Technically,
yeah. Breaking, obviously, making rule adjustments makes it, yeah. So technically, it's 5th edition.
Yeah, but like at its core, it's 5th edition, just because it's what all my players know. Yeah, and it's what they could buy when we started playing together 10 years ago.
Yeah, you really don't. I mean, I hate to say this because, like, obviously, you should support. I get, I've been getting some books, I've been getting some things, but like, really, you don't really need to spend almost any money to start playing D&D.
Oh no, absolutely not.
Because unfortunately, for all of the material and stuff, like, unless you're running the game, you would definitely need the book. But like, if you're not and just want to build a character, like, you just Google it. It's all there. All the info's there.
Yeah, I mean, like a student asked me last year, so how do I get into playing D&D? Like how much does it cost? And I looked her in the eye and said, "You're not spending a dime. Here's a link."
Yeah.
I was like, "Here's the trove."
I do think it's important to support these companies because that's part of the reason why they struggle. It
definitely is.
So I definitely I've bought, again, I'm not a super creative DM because I don't have time, but like I've bought independent one shots from people and things, so it is good. Make sure you do support them, but like if you just want to give it a try, it's like, maybe the first one's free. Just try. If you're someone out there and you want to play, like just get a piece of paper, get an app that's free, and make a character, and then if you like it, then you can spend all your money on dice and stuff like a bunch of us do.
Like for me, I've bought every single book 5th edition has released, third party and otherwise.
Nice.
But that's because the last time we moved, I lost my entire 3.5 collection.
Oh.
And I'm probably never going to see that again because that was like 250 books.
That's crazy. How did you lose that?
The moving company lost 3 boxes.
Oh, no. And it was the important stuff, too.
Yeah.
They could have lost the Fairly Heirlooms or the Fine China, but not the 3.5 collection.
Like, come on. But at some point I'll recollect them when I care enough. But I mean,
yeah.
I like Wizards of the Coast as a company. I'm going to support them when I can. I literally own stock in Hasbro.
There you go.
So it's in my own self-interest.
Very cool. Nice. All right. So you run all these games. I want to hear a little bit more about, I know the vampire game is a big one. So what, do you write that whole
I do.
Story with that? And then what kind of a system? I know the system's pretty interesting, right? For the vampire game.
So vampire, or the World of Darkness, if we wish to use the world agnostic term. So
the World of Darkness, is that the name of the system?
That's the name of the setting. I think the technical name for the engine that runs everything is called the Storyteller system.
Okay.
I've always heard it was called World of Darkness, WoD, Vampire, whatever you're playing. But
okay.
So it's D10s. To put it in terms a D&D player is going to understand immediately. Divide your core attributes by 10, round up to the closest whole number. That's how many D10s you get to roll. Each D10 has a 6 out of 10 chance of rolling a success. That's
Gotcha.
roughly how the math equates out.
All right. So it's mostly just, for lack of a better word, a percentage of successes and failures of that you can roll, but it's more consistent than some other games. So it's very role play. So this is much more role play heavy.
Yeah, at the end of the day, I think episode 5 of Blood Brothers War, I literally think they only rolled to see if they gained hunger dice.
Gotcha. Now that's an interesting mechanic, right? So the hunger dice, I guess, what makes them, because I think I understand the concept, essentially they roll, and if they roll a certain number, they have to feed, right? Essentially.
So so hunger is a rating 1 to 5. 1 is I could eat. 5 is I am literally incapable of complex thought until my beast is satiated.
Gotcha.
And the risk of having hunger is that if you roll a 1 on a hunger dice, it's called a bestial failure. It is the only technical roll in the game that is a failure. Because on the black dice, the normal dice, there's blanks, there's successes, and there's 1 crit. There is no fail on the test dice.
Gotcha.
And if you now, the other side, the messy critical, if you crit on the hunger dice, it isn't you that succeeded that check. It's the beast inside of you that wants to eat.
Gotcha.
So sure, you succeeded, but you succeeded in such a way that your vampiric nature comes out.
Gotcha. Interesting. Oh man. So that probably gets really crazy.
It's this delicate balancing act.
What's your favorite? What's one of your favorite moments playing the vampire game?
I think my favorite moment right now is probably one of the biggest roles I've ever seen as a storyteller for Vampire, where they were in the finale of their last season, and one of their party members, a La Sombra, think a shadow vampire, he was trying to basically slam down what was essentially a shadow nuclear device.
Oh no!
It's the only way, if it went off, it was going to bring everything within 100-yard radius into essentially the bad ending of Dark Souls is the only way I can really describe the Abyss in World of Darkness in passing. And he was tackling the evil guy that had it.
Okay.
And the buff that he got to that role was one of the other party members, Caius Dacia, Prince of Virginia. Like our Virginia.
I know, well, because it takes place in the modern world, right?
Well, this one's in the Civil War.
Okay.
But it's still mostly real world. But so the actual Lasombra in question was from the Eastern Roman Empire. Caius was from the original Roman Empire. So as like a hype for him, he goes, "You're a true Roman." And then the Jacob, player for Caius, looks at me and says, "Can I roll leadership to give him a teamwork buff?" And I was like, I would be a terrible storyteller if I didn't allow you to. So he rolls his charisma and his leadership, and he rolls his dice, and he rolls 10 successes.
Oh wow!
Because he rolled like 5 crits, and for every 2 crits you get 2 real successes. They double up.
Nice.
And how teamwork tests in Vampire work is one person gets to help you, usually. And the person who's giving you the teamwork help, their successes on a test rolled before you gets added to your test pool.
Oh my gosh.
So then the actual Lasombra, to basically try to get control of the situation, ended up having to look to Brian, who plays Nicholas Flamel, and says, "I need to borrow like half of your black dice because now I get to roll 23 dice."
Nice. So that was to grapple the guy with. That was like to grapple the guy with the bomb in the hand.
Yeah, well, it was to grapple him and try to control the blast.
Okay.
So it was kind of like when Yamcha.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, with the I forget what.
I know what you're talking about, but I don't. Yeah.
Yeah, like, it was that kind of moment. And then they blow up, and everyone else gets out of the building, though. But because of the success that we had, I was like, "So you're not dead. You and this vampire that you grappled are now literally, because of the explosion, are now floating in the dimension of Twilight, which is this thin membrane of space between the real world and darkness. And now you have to roll to see if you can get back with him or without him, or you can consume him for his power and then leave."
So what happened? Because now I'm on the edge of my seat. Unless it hasn't happened yet.
Well, no, it has happened. I'm getting there. So he goes, "This guy's one of like the biggest assholes in my backstory because he helped kill the progenitor of my bloodline. I have to eat this guy."
Yeah, you gotta eat him.
Now, this is a thing called diablerie, which is really risky for vampires because if it's a vampire older than you, if you eat them and subsume their soul, you gain all their power. The downside is their soul is stronger than yours, so you risk them taking over you, even if you kill them.
Oh my gosh!
So
it's like this is a big risk.
Yeah, but hell of a reward. So they both roll their willpower and charisma. And Lysander, the Lasombra in question, he succeeds by a margin of 1 dice.
1 success. Oh my gosh!
And the best part of this was how I narrated him winning, because I didn't tell him he won.
Right.
I said, "So back to all of you who escaped the blast. You leave Prague, you go back to your haven in Sicily, you prepare to go back to America. Francois, you're going to have to try to make this mirror work because you have a vague idea of how this technology works. Lysander was the one who was supposed to do it, but you don't know what's happened to him." And so he turns on the mirror, which is a conduit to the darkness, because they can basically use it for, it's not quite fast travel, but it's equivalent to it. And this hand starts to come out of the mirror, and none of them know whose hand it is.
Oh, that's so dope.
And then I describe the ring that Lysander wears because he's technically an heir to Byzantium. And the moment they hear that ring, they're like, "Oh my God, he's alive!"
Oh my God, that's so good. That's so good. I love that. My one of the games that we were playing in, it's much smaller scale, but like essentially one of our buddies like went down in magical darkness, and we couldn't find him. And his first roll was a nat 1, and he just messages the DM his next roll, and we're like trying to find him, and then we're waiting for him, and he crit on the next one, natural 20. So he just comes running out because he got to 1 hit point. But like, that was really fun. But like what you just described, that sounds so intense. I love that. I love that, like those near misses, and you just usually for me I near miss, but the other way. But like that is very, very cool. That sounds like a really fun game. I have recently, so I was I've been doing 5th edition. The Call of Cthulhu one shot that we did on my stream a couple weeks back on the 29th, it was my first time playing Call of Cthulhu, which is obviously it was so fun. I loved it. I had a great freaking time. I loved it. I never get to run it though. It's really fun. You never get to run it?
No, but I love the game to death because I love, like, my players of D&D know that I love Lovecraftian mythos because I adapt the crap out of it. I don't get to play Call of Cthulhu where I'm supposed to get to use it.
Play Call of Cthulhu. I think Call of Cthulhu is good for one shots too. Like we just did a one shot, and I bet a long-term campaign's pretty cool too, because then like your character actually has to like go into a mental institution and like get their shit together. But also just playing knowing you're gonna die or go crazy is also pretty fun.
Yeah, there is a certain kind of buy-in for Call of Cthulhu that's very different as a mentality than any other RPG, because in most RPGs there's some level of an assumption of success. And some games do it to different degrees, like in 7th Sea, a Monty Cook game I have over on my wall. That game is very much on the liberal end of things, where it is assumed every single time you want to do something, you're going to be able to succeed. But it is up to you as the player to choose how you fail to make the story interesting. And there's this meta currency exchange of like panache points, because it's meant to simulate like the swashbuckling Three Musketeers kind of Monte Cristo style storytelling.
All right.
And then on the opposite end of that, you have Call of Cthulhu, where you're not going to win.
You're not going to win. Technically,
you might survive.
Technically, 2 of our characters, one of them, my character, we don't really know what happened to, and I don't want to spoil anything in case people still want to listen to it. That one's done, pretty good. We almost got like 100 views on that one, but like, one of our characters, one character 100% didn't make it. 2 of them, it's kind of confusing. So, but it's like, all right, this is bad, is the way we ended. It was a great story. I loved it. I would definitely play again. Nice. You should definitely play one. Or you should definitely just run one. Just do it then if you want to do it. I'm sure you could find people to do it.
The Call of Cthulhu game I want to run right now is literally just adapting Lost, the show.
Okay. Oh, all right. That's pretty cool. That makes sense. Very, very nice. I wanted to hear maybe one more like crazy story. So I know like you plan all these games out. Do you do a lot of research when you like play games?
I do, and I actually have a story about research that is going to blow your mind.
Cool. I'd love to hear it.
So this story is called How Shadowrun Got Me a Meeting with the Secret Service.
Go ahead.
So the last Shadowrun game I ran was set in Washington, D.C. That's going to make sense in a second. And one of their patrons, a man by the name of John Galt, because I love my references. He was the Speaker of the House. And for context on Shadowrun, alternate future, corporations have government level power, they have militaries, they have everything. John Galt hates it.
Okay.
Like he wants to walk that back legally and put governments back in charge where they belong. So his goal is to become president of the United States.
Okay.
But he knows that his platform is not popular enough for him to win legitimately. So as Speaker of the House, he does a couple things. He orchestrates a law to be passed where the president, in times of emergency, can, without the consent of Congress, put justices on the Supreme Court. And it passes, it ends up in committee later. That's a bunch of the plot you don't need to know about. Sure. What's important is that law passes, because that's the linchpin of Galt's plan. Galt has the vice president assassinated and replaced by a vampire loyal to him. Because there's vampires in Shadowrun, because why not? Because sci-fi magic.
Right.
And he uses this Shadowrun team to do all of these, what seemed at the time to be completely unconnected jobs, to bring enough resources together to simultaneously decapitate all three branches of the U.S. government. He blows up the Supreme Court, who was debating his bill, by the way.
Oh, really?
He has his vampiric vice president murder the president when there's a blackout in Washington, D.C. in the emergency room, and then kill himself because he's a vampire, just walk out in the sun.
Right, okay.
And then he becomes president. Now, because he's a smart villain and wants to, tie up loose ends, he, before all this happens, arranges for his Shadowrunners, his disposable assets, to go on vacation overseas for a while with all their ill-gotten gains, like millions of dollars in just slush money. And they show up at the airport at the agreed upon time, and they see Air Force One. Like actual, honestly, on Air Force One, and they're like, oh, well, Galt has connections. That's not a red flag. So they get on, they fly to Paris. Halfway to Paris, Air Force One blows up and kills all of them. Okay. And the players I was running that game for were very much rules lawyery. So I had to come to that session with the math to tell them how legally I just killed all of them.
Oh.
For like the ultimate plot twist, because they had really trusted the wrong guy for way too long.
So how does this wait, so did you research like how to blow up Air Force One or something?
So I'm about to get to that.
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, you're good. Trust me, I'm getting there.
Okay.
It's all the setup.
Got it.
So now to do this, I needed the math of how to blow up a plane.
Oh my gosh.
So I go online and I essentially look for a map of a very specific plane that I'm not going to name for obvious reasons, that happens to be the model used for Air Force One.
Got it.
I look up how many seats are on it. I look at how many people can fit on it. I look at how much fuel goes in its tanks at any given time. I look up how much plastic explosives you can fit under a surface area equal to the bottom of its seats.
Oh my gosh.
So I look up all this information on my home American Wi-Fi.
Oh my God.
And literally the day before the session, so this couldn't have been better timing.
That's hilarious.
I'm at home alone. My parents are both at work because they're nurses, so they work ungodly hours. Okay. I'm just awake at 4 a.m. crunching numbers because I'm blowing up a plane with dice. And there's a respectful but firm knock at the door.
Oh my God.
I look out my window and I see the most Men in Black looking fuckers I've ever seen in my life. Like, I feel like their windows were tinted in like a Vanta black. Uh-huh. Like it was that black, and they're just sitting on my front porch in suits, shades and everything, and I'm like, okay. So I walk down into the door. Can I help you, gentlemen? Yeah. And they say, so we've been called here because of some suspicious bandwidth. And I immediately know what they're here about. And I say, hold on. I'm going to stop you right there. Come with me. And they're caught off guard at first, but they're like, 17-year-old white boy, clearly a nerd.
Yeah.
He's not a threat. They follow me up into my office because I have an office where I do all my gaming stuff. Right. And I pull out my notebook and I say, so all these printouts that look like terrorism, let me show you why it's not. And then I pull out my Shadowrun rules book and say, so this is why I was looking up that information. And I felt like I'd made those guards at Buckingham Palace break composure.
That's amazing.
Because these men laughed so much that for a moment I thought I was committing homicide.
That's hilarious.
Stop laughing.
Where were you living at the time?
Same house I'm in right now.
So,
in South Carolina.
Oh my God. So like they sent the Secret Service probably from all the way to Washington, D.C. all the way down to South Carolina. So you thought you were going to blow up a plane.
And I was like, guys, it's okay. I'm just a nerd. I'm not a terrorist.
Oh my God. That's hilarious. Well, I'm going to have to figure out a great title for that. Oh my God.
That's probably the most ridiculous story I have to tell.
That is
true.
Probably one of the best stories.
Because it happened.
This is what I'm talking about.
Happened.
Listen to these listeners out here. No one would even know that you can get hit up by the Secret Service if you just commit too hard into researching your games. And now...
And some other research that got my players depressed in Great Grudge War is I had to do math for a Holocaust.
Oh my gosh. Well, you know what?
Which we're not going to get into for obvious reasons.
We're not going to get into for one reason. Yeah, we don't want to talk about that. And two, we're pushing that limit. I think we're out of time here as far as like how long the episodes are. But I definitely, eventually I'll start circling back to people. I'm sure you have an endless well of amazing stories. But yeah, be careful. Be careful what you're searching out there, folks, because apparently Big Brother's watching. They're keeping an eye on you. That's hilarious. Did you tell your parents?
No.
Oh my God.
I hope and pray that those two agents went back to the office and were like, I think I want to play Shadowrun.
Maybe. Yeah, that's what I think. You guys want to play? I mean, you're in town. Very, very cool. All right, Colin, this was a lot of fun. Do you have anything you want to plug? Do you stream or anything?
The only plug I really have is my book on Amazon.
Plug it.
It's like $17. Just look up my name, Amazon.com, Colin Turzai. It's No More Heroes, ? The Long Shadow.
All right. Check it out, folks. If you want to, what is it? Just like a sci-fi book or a...
Think if like Justice League and Watchmen had a very angsty child that distrusted government.
All right. Awesome. Well, I'm going to send this out. Thanks for anyone who is listening. If you're listening to this live here on Twitch, you can always check out the audio only. Pretty much anywhere you get your podcast, you just look up You Had to Be There, a D&D storytelling podcast. And if you want to watch, a lot of the videos are still up on Twitch. I finally got caught up to uploading all of them to YouTube. So all of my YouTube channel, you can just look up my name, Tom DeSillis, on YouTube, and you can find all of the previous episodes of You Had to Be There on the YouTube. Send me an email at youhadtobethere@dndpodcast@gmail.com to be a guest on the show. My music for my intro was created by Michael James McGarry. You can follow him on It's MJ Made on SoundCloud or Instagram. And my logo for my podcast was created by Nicole Summers from the Reliably Chaotic podcast. And if you're listening to this, just the audio or on YouTube, we go live pretty much whenever I feel like it because time on You Had to Be There podcast on Twitch. And on that thunderous note, that'll end all of my ridiculous plugs. Thanks for everyone who's listening. This has been You Had to Be There with Colin Turzai. Bye, everyone.